I never imagined that the moment I stood in front of my family and told them I had bought a brand new 920,000 condo, everything in the room would go silent, like someone had sucked the air out of everyone's lungs at once. It was supposed to be a happy moment, something worth celebrating. Instead, all I saw were frozen faces, tightened jaws, and eyes filled with something between shock and resentment. And the craziest part, just a week earlier, my mom couldn't stop bragging about my sister's new, beautiful home that she and her husband proudly bought. She paraded photos around like it was a trophy for the entire family. But the second I showed them mine, paid with my own money, earned without a single handout, their smiles died instantly. And I still don't know why a family who should have been proud felt threatened instead. So tell me, was I wrong for sharing my accomplishment? Or was their reaction proof that they never wanted me to succeed in the first place? The whole thing didn't start with the condo. It started long before that. Years of things being brushed aside, favoritism that everyone pretended wasn't there, and a family dynamic that, honestly, I didn't fully see until this moment forced my eyes open. I grew up being the middle child nobody really paid attention to. Not in a tragic way, just in that typical, you'll be fine on your own sort of way. My older sister Nadia was the golden one. She was the obedient one, the traditional one, the one who followed every path my mom laid out for her. And because of that, my parents adored her. Then there was my younger brother, the baby of the family, the one who needed support, and needed guidance, and needed priority because he was still figuring things out. Meanwhile, I was the independent one, the one who could manage on my own, the one nobody worried too much about. They assumed I didn't need anything from them. And most of the time I didn't. But that didn't mean I didn't notice how differently I was treated. Growing up, it was always Nadia's accomplishments that were put on display. When she got a 92% on an exam, my mom threw a mini celebration. When I scored a 95%, the response was, "Good, keep studying like that." When she got engaged, my parents spent months preparing for her big day like it was a national event. When I achieved something, it was treated more like a personal project I was expected to complete quietly. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need validation. I didn't need applause. I would build my own path, make my own success, and create a life I could be proud of without asking for anyone's permission. But even if I didn't need praise, I never expected to be punished for doing well. For most of my 20s, I worked like a machine. I studied, I saved, I worked double shifts, I took freelance jobs at night, and I sacrificed weekends and sleep and vacations, all because I wanted freedom. I wanted something big for myself. I wanted to one day buy a place of my own without relying on anyone. Meanwhile, my sister got married and immediately had financial support. Her husband's family pitched in. My own parents pitched in. Even the extended family gave them gifts and money. And I didn't resent her. I genuinely believed she deserved happiness. But whenever I brought up my achievements, getting a promotion, saving a bigger chunk of money, finishing a big project, my parents' reactions were lukewarm. Almost distracted. Like they were saying, "That's nice, but Nadia's pregnancy scan came today." Or, "That's good, but your brother has an interview and we're praying for him." It was always something else. Something more important. Something that overshadowed me. Fast forward to last month. I had finally saved enough to start looking at places. I wasn't planning on buying something extravagant. I just wanted something that felt like mine. A place where nobody could tell me I needed permission or approval. I toured 6, maybe 7 condos before I found the one. It was everything I wanted: modern, clean, bright, in a great neighborhood, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. When the agent told me it was listed for 920,000, my heart dropped a little. It was high. Higher than what I initially planned. But something inside me said, "You've earned this. Don't sell yourself short." I ran the numbers 3 times, consulted my bank, and realized I could afford it. Not comfortably, not without effort, but honestly. I was proud of myself for even being in a position to consider it. I didn't tell my family immediately. Partly because I wanted to make sure everything went through smoothly, and partly because, deep down, I wondered how they'd react. Would they be surprised, supportive, happy, or would they find a way to turn it into something negative? I didn't want to deal with unnecessary comments while I was still making such a huge decision, so I kept quiet. The process was stressful. The paperwork, the inspections, the negotiations. But 2 weeks later, everything was finalized. I signed the papers. I took the keys, and I stood in the empty unit with tears in my eyes because it didn't feel real. I had done this. Me, the child who was always told, "You're responsible enough, you can manage on your own." A week after I bought the condo, my mom called me, excited about something. She said, "Beta, your sister bought a beautiful home. You have to see it." She spent 20 minutes describing the marble floors, the open kitchen, the backyard. She even bragged about how the down payment was handled smoothly. I knew what that meant. Everybody pitched in. Parents, in-laws, cousins, aunties, uncles. It was practically a community project. I congratulated my sister sincerely. She deserved to be happy. But I'll be honest, I felt a sting when I realized nobody had ever offered me that kind of support. I bought my condo entirely on my own, and not a single family member even knew about the endless nights I spent working or the stress I carried. The next day, the family planned a dinner. Everyone was going to be there: my parents, my siblings, their spouses, even a couple of cousins. My mom kept saying, "We're going to celebrate Nadia's new home properly." And I didn't argue. I went. I wore something casual. I planned to smile, eat, and go home. But somewhere deep inside, I knew that I was finally ready to share my own news too. Not to compete, not to brag. Just because it was my life too, and I wanted my family to know that I had done something big. Something I worked incredibly hard for. Little did I know the atmosphere would change so dramatically the moment the words left my mouth. When I arrived at the dinner, everyone was already buzzing with excitement. My mom had printed a photo of my sister's house and displayed it on the dining table like some kind of centerpiece. My dad kept talking about how Nadia made such a smart investment. My brother joked around about how he'd move in with her if she let him. The energy was warm, loud, and full of laughter. I sat there listening, smiling, waiting for the right moment to speak. It came when my dad asked Nadia's husband about the renovation plans. When they finished talking, there was a small pause. "Actually, I also bought a place recently." Just like that. Simple, calm, straightforward. The room went silent instantly. At first, they thought I meant I was renting. So my mom said casually, "You finally moved out? Good, Beta. It was about time." I shook my head and said, "No, I bought a place." Like bought. I even chuckled nervously. "A condo." The silence deepened, their faces changed. My sister blinked slowly, almost confused. My brother stopped scrolling through his phone. My dad leaned forward slightly. My mom's smile froze in a weird half shape. Then she asked, "How much did it cost?" I hesitated for a second. I didn't want to say it. The number felt too big, too shocking, especially compared to what they expected from me. But I didn't want to lie either, so I said it. 920,000. That's when everything shifted. My mom's eyebrows shot up, and she suddenly stopped blinking. My dad looked at me like he had misheard. My sister's face completely fell. Her husband glanced at her, then at me, then back at her again. My brother let out a soft "damn," but not in a congratulatory way, more like a "what the hell" way. The temperature in the room changed. I could feel it. The air felt heavier, thicker, like judgment was seeping out of the walls. My sister's husband finally asked, "On your own?" I nodded. "Yeah, all on my own." Another silence. My mom's first real reaction was, "But how?" Not impressed, not proud, not excited, just confused and almost suspicious, like I had done something wrong, or like I wasn't supposed to achieve that much without their involvement. That hurt more than I expected. I told them about my years of saving, the promotions, the freelance work, the sacrifices, but they didn't look happy, they looked bothered. My mom whispered, "It's almost $1 million, as if that was a crime. My dad mumbled something about risky decisions. My sister stayed quiet, biting her lip. My brother asked me to show pictures, but when I did, my mom didn't even look. I don't know how to explain it, but their entire energy shifted from celebration to awkwardness. Every smile vanished. Every joyful tone turned stiff. And instead of asking to see my place, instead of congratulating me like they did with my sister, they acted like I had ruined the evening. I kept wondering why. Why was my sister's home a family celebration? But mine was treated like an uncomfortable secret. I didn't confront them right away. I just sat there, feeling like the outsider I had always suspected I was. But later that night, alone in my new condo, surrounded by empty walls and unpacked boxes, I replayed everything in my head. The frozen expressions, the silence, the way nobody said, "We're proud of you." Not even once. And that's when I realized this wasn't about my condo at all. It was about something deeper. Something that had been building for years. Something inside them that couldn't handle the idea that I had succeeded on my own more than they ever expected, and maybe more than they ever wanted. So that's the situation I was in, and I knew I had a choice to make. I could either swallow their reactions quietly and pretend it didn't hurt, or I could finally ask the question I had never dared to ask. Why isn't my success allowed to be celebrated too? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a moment and tell me honestly, What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you confront your family? Would you stay silent? Would you walk away? Let me know in the comments before we continue. When I finally gathered the courage to face my family again, after that painfully awkward dinner, I had already spent days replaying every second of their reactions in my mind. Every frozen stare, every disbelieving whisper, every tiny shift in their expressions that told me more than their silence ever could. I'm not an overly emotional person, but those few minutes carved a small wound inside me that I couldn't stop noticing. Every time I walked around my condo, every time I looked out at the skyline, every time I sat at my new kitchen counter imagining what life was about to look like, that wound reminded me that the people who should have been proud of me seemed almost threatened instead. And I couldn't shake the feeling that buying something this big, something I earned through years of grinding, had broken some invisible rule in my family. Like I had stepped out of the role they silently assigned to me, the role of the child who works hard quietly but never outshines anyone. A week passed before I visited them again, and honestly, I only went because my mom insisted I come over for lunch. She sounded normal on the phone, but there was this stiffness in her tone, like she didn't know how to talk to me anymore. When I walked into the house, the atmosphere was awkward in a different way. Not cold, not warm, just tense. Like everyone was tiptoeing around something unsaid. My dad was sitting on the sofa pretending to read the newspaper, and my mom was chopping vegetables aggressively, like the onions had personally offended her. I sat down at the dining table, hoping someone would ask me how the move was going, or when they could see the place, or maybe congratulate me properly. But the conversation stayed on irrelevant topics. My aunt's neighbor's health problems, some sale happening in the market, my brother's job search. They completely ignored the giant elephant in the room. Eventually, I brought it up myself, quietly and gently, because I couldn't keep pretending nothing happened. I said, "Saw about the new condo." I didn't get the chance to talk much that day. My mom's knife stopped mid-chop. She looked at me with that same frozen expression I saw at the dinner and said, "Yes, we were all just surprised. It's a big amount." She didn't say, "Congratulations." She didn't say, "We're proud of you." Instead, she said, "A big amount," like I had committed some kind of financial crime. My dad folded his newspaper and cleared his throat. "We just didn't expect something like that from you," he said. And that sentence, it hit me harder than I expected. Something like that from you. Like ambition, success, and wealth were things that didn't belong in my category. Like my sister buying a house was expected and celebrated, but me buying a condo was an anomaly, an uncomfortable one. I tried to stay calm. "Why is it surprising?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I've been saving for years. I've been working nonstop. I didn't do anything reckless." My dad replied, "You should have told us before making such a big decision." And his tone wasn't worried, it was almost accusatory. As if my independence was an insult, I said, "Would it have made a difference?" He hesitated too long before answering. "It's not about difference, it's about respect. Respect." That confused me. I wasn't disrespecting them by making a financial decision about my own life. But the more I listened, the more I realized their issue wasn't the condo. It was the fact that I did something big, without consulting them, without letting them supervise, without letting them have control or influence over it. Control they never used on me when I needed help. Control they freely gave to my sister because she welcomed it. Control they assumed I didn't need until my success made them uncomfortable. My mom jumped in next. "It just felt strange," she said. "You didn't even mention you were looking for places. It felt like you hid it. I didn't hide it. I simply didn't announce it." But when you're the child who has always been expected to manage alone, even your silence is treated like rebellion. I asked her the question that had been burning in my chest since that dinner. Why did everyone react so badly? When Nadia bought her home, everyone celebrated. When I bought mine, it felt like I ruined the night. My mom didn't answer. My dad avoided my eyes. And that's when Nadia, the sister who always got the softest version of our parents, walked into the room. She must have heard the conversation from the hallway because she looked defensive immediately. She sat down across from me and said, "It wasn't like that?" I replied, "Then what was it like?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I was just sudden. The word stung almost as much as everything else. I said, "Why does sudden matter? Would it have been less shocking if I had told you earlier? Or did you all just assume I wasn't capable of something like this?" My sister didn't answer, and her silence said everything. She was happy when she thought she was the only one who owned property. The only one who had achieved something big. The only one whose home became a family celebration. But when I bought something more expensive, more modern, more independent, they didn't know how to handle it. I finally said, I earned it. I worked for it. I'm not asking for money, help, or approval. I just expected support. My mom's response, you don't need our support. You always manage alone. That was the moment I realized the exact truth. They only celebrate the children they feel responsible for. The ones they can control, the ones they think depend on them. But me, I was the one who got things done without them. And somehow, that made my success less worthy in their eyes. Like it didn't count as a family accomplishment. Like it made them feel unneeded. I left that lunch feeling heavier than before, and I told myself I wasn't going to bring it up again. If they wanted to stay distant, let them. I had my new place, my new chapter, my own accomplishments that didn't require their validation. But the story didn't end there, not even close. Because 2 weeks later, something happened that forced everything into the open in a way I never expected. My sister planned a big housewarming party. She invited everyone, friends, cousins, extended family, everyone except me. I found out from a cousin who casually mentioned, "See you at Nadia's housewarming." I thought it was a misunderstanding, so I checked the group chat. No invite. I searched my messages. Nothing. I waited 2 days, thinking maybe she meant to tell me later. Nothing. So yes, I confronted her. Calmly at first, I called her and asked, "Hey, are you having a housewarming party?" She hesitated and said yes. I asked, "I supposed to be invited?" Another hesitation. Then she finally said, "I thought it might be better if you didn't come?" That sentence burned. Why, I asked, genuinely confused. Her explanation shocked me more than anything that had happened so far. She said, "Your condo is bigger than my house. If you come, people will start comparing. I don't want my special moment overshadowed. Overshadowed. That was the word, the truth, the hidden root of all of their reactions. I was never meant to surpass her. I wasn't meant to succeed beyond the role I was given. And now that I did, she felt threatened. And apparently so did my parents. I told her, "I'm not trying to overshadow you. I'm your sister," and she replied, "Exactly. And that's why I don't want competition between us." Competition. I never saw us as competitors. But she clearly did. I ended the call stunned, hurt, and furious in a way I hadn't felt in years. And for days, I debated whether I should confront my parents about this or just quietly walk away from all of them. But what finally pushed me over the edge was when my mom called me the night before the housewarming and said, "Beta, don't take it personally. Nadia deserves the spotlight right now. You've already had enough attention." Enough attention. I almost laughed at the absurdity. My life had been a long stretch of ignored accomplishments, dismissed achievements, and being told you'll manage. And now, suddenly I had too much attention, because I bought a place nicer than my sister's. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to argue with them anymore. I wasn't going to beg for validation. I wasn't going to pretend their favoritism didn't hurt. Instead, I was going to take control of the narrative once and for all. So on the day of my sister's housewarming, the party I wasn't invited to, I posted a full tour of my new condo on social media. Not out of spite, not to show off, but because I deserved to celebrate something I worked so hard for, and I didn't need my family's permission to be proud of myself. The video blew up. Friends commented. Coworkers congratulated me. People told me I deserved every bit of success I had earned. For the first time, I felt seen. But when my family saw the post, everything exploded. My mom called, furious. "Why would you show your condo like that today of all days?" she demanded. I answered honestly, "Because today is the day I moved past needing your approval." My sister texted me paragraphs accusing me of stealing her thunder, embarrassing her, and making her house look small. My dad told me I should have kept things private, because family matters shouldn't go online. But the truth was simple. They weren't upset that I posted the condo. They were upset that the world celebrated me when they refused to. And for once, I didn't apologize. The aftermath was messy. We didn't speak for weeks. When we finally did, everything was different. The fake warmth was gone. The forced closeness was gone. And honestly, the weight I had been carrying my whole life was gone too. I finally saw them clearly. And I finally saw myself clearly. I had spent years trying to earn a place in a family that never saw me fully. But with every step I took toward independence, I built something they couldn't take away from me. My own life. My own home. My own identity. And maybe for the first time, my own peace. So if you've listened to this entire story, here's what I learned: not everyone wants to see you win. Sometimes, the people you expect to clap first are the ones who clap last, or never at all. But that shouldn't stop you from building the life you deserve. And now, before I wrap this up, I want to ask you one last time: was I wrong? Was I petty for posting my condo tour? Or was I simply claiming the pride and celebration my family never gave me? Tell me everything in the comments because I genuinely want to know if you'd have done the same. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this. And don't forget to share your final thoughts about this entire mess. I'll see you all in the next story.